All right, so welcome and thanks for joining us on this video. So we are preparing for the 2021 Quest for the Crest Sailfish Series. And in light of how much I know you guys love hearing me talk on the microphone during the captain's meetings for that exciting rules review meeting, we're gonna try something a little bit different here this season, and we're working on a comprehensive video that will basically cover a lot of the high points on the important aspects of the rules, a lot of things that we touch in on the captain's meeting, and we're gonna circulate that to you guys in video form electronically, so you always have it available to you, and hopefully find it to be helpful. So stay tuned for the upcoming video review of the Quest for the Crest series rules. All right, so let's talk about the eligible species. This is a sailfish tournament, so of course, sailfish count. You will also get release points for blue marlin and white marlin. Don't forget, guys, we have added a considerable amount of meat fish money into the series as of last year. And so your eligible meat fish are dolphin, wahoo, kingfish, tuna, and cobia. And we've got meat fish Calcuttas that include meat fish dailies, aggregate weight, heaviest fish, along with all the other prize money for your sailfish releases. So that's your eligible species. All right, so one of the common questions we get is anglers. How many anglers can you fish on your boat in the Sailfish Series tournaments? Well, the beautiful thing about our tournaments is, even though we have a very reasonable entry fee of only $1,200 per boat in each event, that covers as many anglers as you want to have join you for the day of fishing. And if you don't believe me, just ask Team Surreal. All right, so we're gonna talk about tackle in this segment, guys. So as far as your leader is concerned, you can fish leader of any size you want, 40 pound, 80 pound, 50 pound. Key thing to remember is that that leader has to be no longer than 15 feet in length. So just to give you an idea, as you stretch that out from the knot where you tie the hook to the loop that you snap onto your swivel, if you're using a snap swivel, no more than 15 feet on your leader material. All right, so let's talk about the hooks now. As required by National Marine Fisheries, any tournament that's targeting billfish, particularly sailfish, must use a circle hook, all circle hook format. So you can see here, there's a good example of a circle hook. And that circle hook has to be non-offset. So no offset, 0 degree offset on the circle hook. And so to give you an example, this is a much larger hook than you'd expect to see any of you guys fishing in these sailfish tournaments. But just for demonstration purposes, I wanted to show you, you can see here from the shank of the hook to the point here how that's offset. Circle hook only format, guys, and the circle hook has to be non-offset. So a hook like this would be no good. Basically, it's got to lay flat in your hand, and no offset, obviously, to be usable in these tournaments. All right, so let's talk about the double line. If you are fishing a double line on your rig, which most guys do on their kite baits at least, keep in mind that the length of the double line cannot exceed 5 feet. And together, the combined length of the double line with your 15-foot leader material cannot exceed 20 feet. If you guys are fishing wire, that wire is also part of your 20-foot length. So double to leader to hook, maximum combined length 20 feet. So dredges. Can you fish dredges in the Quest for the Crest Sailfish Series? The answer to that question is yes. Your maximum number of dredges that you can fish is 2. The dredges may be artificial only, no natural dredges, no live bait dredges. All right, so this is a question we get a lot from the meat fish guys. Can you fish a stinger rig in the sailfish tournaments? The answer is yes. It may be wire. However, unlike this rig that you see here has a J hook on it, all stingers must still have a circle hook. Okay, so just a couple more tackle related topics, guys, and this is just questions that have come up over the years that I like to try and make sure we address. One of the things that's important to know about our format, we love the IGFA, we support the IGFA through many of our events year round. However, our rules are not IGFA specific, so pay close attention to the rules which are available on the website. We give you a copy in the plastic bag that we talk about here in this video, and they're also available in the magazine. And they're pretty comprehensive and very thorough. But for example, backing. We get the question a lot of times about braided line. Can you fish braided line for backing? The answer is yes. You can fish braided line on your reel if you want. We do not have any restrictions as far as line type or line weight, only your leader length and your double line length when it comes to the tournament. All right, so let's talk about the checkout procedure, guys, and lines in, lines out. So one of the things that I love about these tournaments, we have teams coming from all over, is there's no physical morning checkout. So for example, up in Palm Beach, you know, it's convenient to stay at Sailfish Marina or the couple of the neighboring marinas for the entire tournament for the best experience. However, if you live in Boca, if you live in Pompano, you want to keep your boat and your bait in your backyard or somewhere else, you're welcome to do that. So all you have to do for your checkout procedure, everything is video based, time, date, and GPS. So for example, here is an official boat number for the upcoming Operation Sailfish. Our lines in are 8 a.m., our lines out are at 4 p.m. So just prior to lines in, we need somebody from your crew to basically on video camera, show their boat number, say, hey, this is boat number 70, Team Encore, checking out for Operation Sailfish Day 1. And then with the time and date piece, you're gonna have your cameraman come right over here. They can either show you the phone, in this case, which will show the time and date on it, and then circle right over here in front of your GPS to get the coordinates to verify that you are within the boundaries of the tournament prior to your start of fishing. And that covers your morning checkout. Okay, so this is a very important piece as well as far as establishing your video for the start of the day, because again, all releases in the tournaments have to be documented on video. We always encourage you guys, as we're going to talk about in this video, to have backup cameras. And so if you have backup cameras, make sure you go through the same process with any camera that you could potentially be turning in an SD card for at the end of the day, as far as boat number and verification of time and date, not just your primary camera. While we're talking about the camera stuff, also really important, camera guys, please format your cards, clear out all of your old video, all of your old pictures. We love your family, we love your vacations, but we don't really have time to watch them during the tournament. So clear that out for us. Make sure you go into your settings and make sure your time and date on your cameras, your handheld cameras, your GoPros, or whatever the case may be, are set to the proper time and date for the event so that everything checks out as well. Also, so on this video, you're gonna see a Ziploc bag, which is a very important item that needs to make sure it finds its way onto your boat. That Ziploc bag has your color cards for your releases, it has your release cards, it has a general info sheet, it has a copy of the rules, it has some video recording tips, some really important stuff in there. Make sure somebody on your team takes responsibility for it, gets it to the boat along with your boat number, because a good bit of that stuff you're gonna need during each day of the competition. And in particular on the video tips, I'm not gonna cover all that detail because it is in the bag, but just a couple of big things that you wanna make sure that you don't do. We've seen it happen. Lens caps get left on while they're recording because they're looking at the fish and not actually looking at the video. Make sure your lens cap comes off before you start recording. Make sure you bring extra batteries just in case if you have extra batteries. Backup cameras are really important, like I said, and you don't need to record footage of meat fish and those types of things. The only fish that we need footage of are sailfish, so read those video recording tips and they'll help you out. All right, so we talked about hours of fishing for the tournaments. We've talked about the check-out procedure. Now we're gonna talk about check-in. It's predominantly the same for all of the tournaments with one minor adjustment on the last leg final sail, day 2. So Operation Sailfish out of Lake Worth Inlet, West Palm Beach. You have until 6 p.m. each day to return to Sailfish Marina to turn in your release cards and your SD cards. So 4 p.m. lines out, you got to be back in, and those release cards have to be turned in by 6 p.m. In the case of Sailfish Challenge, now remember that's a 3 inlet format. So we're going to give you 3 checkpoints, again, of which you have to be back by 6 p.m. to either of those 3 checkpoints. Your north checkpoint is Sailfish Marina in West Palm. Your central checkpoint is Hillsborough Inlet at the Hillsborough Inlet Park. We'll be there at the Finger Docks, which is just on the east side of the Hillsborough Inlet Bridge. And then your south check-in point is Miami Beach Marina in Government Cut in Miami. Again, all 3 spots by 6 p.m. Now for final sail, which is the grand finale of the series down in Miami, hosted by Doubletree Grand, you have until 6 p.m. to turn in your cards and SD cards at Miami Beach Marina on day 1, Friday. On day 2, because our awards party, our ceremony is actually Saturday night, which we're super excited about, finishing with a bang. Your time frame to turn in your SD cards and release cards is reduced by ½ an hour. You have to be back in by 5:30 p.m. on Saturday, day 2 of final sail. All right, so when you're back at the dock for check-in, one important thing to remember as well, or on your way back, you have to return back to the dock to turn your SD cards in the same boat that you fished in. So what that means is you can't have another boat that's faster than your boat, or if you don't feel like coming back to check-in because where you keep your boat is not that close, to the check-in point, doesn't matter. You still have to physically turn your SD card and your release cards in your own boat that your team fished in at the end of the day. And failure to do that means your points for that particular day, your releases are not going to count. All right, so now let's talk about boundaries. The boundaries, of course, for the 3 tournaments are different because they're in 3 different locations. So for the first leg, Operation Sailfish, your south boundary is the 2615, which puts you right in the vicinity of Hillsborough Inlet. We happen to be sitting about a mile north of the boundary as we speak here on the 2616. Your north boundary is going to put you at the 2715 line, which should be right around Port St. Lucie. And then for those who are concerned, the east boundary is the 7922. And all those numbers are going to appear on the screen for you. Next up is the Sailfish Challenge. So for the Sailfish Challenge, again, 3 inlet format, it's the largest boundary of the 3 tournaments. Your north boundary is the 2704, which is up there on the north end of Jupiter. And your south boundary is the 2528, which should put you somewhere in the vicinity, I believe, down there around Triumph Reef, south of Miami. And your east boundary is the 7935. So that's Sailfish Challenge. And then last but not least, down off Miami in April for the final leg of the series, your north boundary is the 2616. So right where we're sitting here right now, just north of Hillsborough Inlet. Your south boundary is the 2515, and that puts you down there in the vicinity of Ocean Reef, Key Largo, and your east boundary is the 7937. All right, so let's talk about the series points race. We know that there's huge money up for grabs in the Quest for the Crest Series, close to $2 million purse to be specific. But I also know that all of you guys who are true competitors have your eyes set on that world champion title in sailfishing in the Burgundy Jackets. So best of luck to all of you. One of the things that we did want to address is changing of boats. So in terms of changing boats, if, for example, members of your team have fished on one particular boat to start the season, first leg, second leg, and the owner of that boat or whatnot decides not to fish the final leg or the second leg, they're not able to, but a good portion of the team wants to carry forward, you can do that and you can carry forward with those points, provided that we have written permission from the owner of the initial team and at least 3 members of that initial team carry forward onto the boat that they are changing over to. Also important to note that you cannot switch to a boat that's already registered and has already been fishing the series, whether they've accumulated points or not. Polygraphs. Do we run them? Of course we do. Every day. Too much money on the line not to make sure that you guys have the confidence that it's being done above board. Also regarding protests, protests certainly can be submitted. If there's something that happens that you have a concern with that may be a violation of the rules, those protests must be submitted in writing within 4 hours of the conclusion of a day of fishing. This is very important. Listen up. It's been added electronically this year. We have an online form to make it easy for your teams, but on the business end of the tournament, every single participant, every member on board your boat for registered teams in the tournaments must sign the event waiver form to be eligible for participation in the tournament. So we'll have the link on the screen as to how to find that form for you guys. But again, it's a requirement, it's not a request. No signature equals no tournament. All right, so scoring format. How does the scoring work? If you've been around a while, this is old hat. If you're new, each sailfish, any billfish for that matter, that's released in the tournament receives a score of 1 point, so long as the release is according to the regulations in the video format, which we'll be discussing here shortly. Meat fish, obviously there's money up for grabs in the meat fish categories. However, the meat fish points only live within the meat fish categories. They do not factor into the overall point system of the tournament for our billfish releases. They are separate. And in the case of meat fish and scoring, mutilated fish, of course, do not count. That's the discretion of the tournament officials to make a determination on a mutilated fish. And you are allowed to weigh a maximum of 4 fish per day in the meat fish category. All right, so let's talk about rods. How many rods can you fish in the tournaments? Maximum amount of rods, maximum number of rods you can fish is 7 in total. Now, that could be 6 kite baits, 1 flat line, doesn't really matter. Also important for you guys to know that the dredge rods don't factor into your line count. So basically you can have 7 rods with hooked baits plus your 2 dredge rods. All right, so this is probably the most important part of the video, and that is talking about how to properly document a sailfish release on video. Because again, remember, everything is video based, right? So I'm going to talk you through that. We're also going to give you an example video in this video that showcases a team that did it textbook for you. So as far as the release is concerned, when you get the bite, okay, the fish is not considered hooked until the drag is engaged. So the person who engages that drag, like I just did right now, or closes the bail on the reel, if it's a spinning reel, is the angler that must fight that fish until catch or loss, right? So you catch it or you lose it. Now, once that fish is hooked and you're reeling tight, okay, on the video piece, the next thing that we need to see is video ID, fish ID on video, okay? So you get a shot of that sailfish jumping, that's your fish ID, right? Now, for the teams that have done this for a long time, it's like anything else, the more you do it, the better you get at it. So practice with your teams, the more comfortable you get with it. But we have a no break in video policy, which means once you establish fish ID, all the way up until the time that a member of your team physically touches that leader, which is also a requirement, the video footage cannot stop, okay? If it stops, it's as if the fish never existed and you have to reestablish video ID. So now, does that mean that you have to film the first time the fish jumps for 30 minutes of fighting it until you get that leader touch? No, it doesn't. In fact, I would really prefer that you don't, because we have a lot of release footage to look through and it makes our job a lot tougher. But more importantly, you guys do what you're most comfortable with, right? So you could get that fish ID, for example, 100 feet from the boat because you anticipate that fish is about ready to jump. You keep your camera rolling all the way to leader touch. And then as that fish is getting within range, remember, a crew member of your boat has to physically touch the leader, okay? They have to physically touch the leader, and then they have to actually part that line. So either take a wrap, break the fish off, or take a leader knife, a pair of snips, and cut the leader material, and that fish is officially released. Then you have to grab your color cards, which we provided in that Ziploc bag for you. Your captain is going to call in the fish. Our radio room is going to respond, and they're going to give you a confirmation number and a color card. At that point in time, some member of your team needs to come back in front of the video and say, that was angler Jamie Bunn, boat number so-and-so. Our confirmation number was whatever confirmation number we give you. Let's say it was 10. And if we gave you the color yellow, you're going to show that color yellow, and that completes the release. So in the case of busy fishing, remember also, guys, that there could be a lot of folks calling in over the radio, calling in on cell phone numbers. We've given you 2 cell phone numbers to use. They're both listed on the front of your boat number. So as far as the continuous video sequence is concerned, we only require it to be continuous from fish ID to leader touch and leader cut. You can break the video while you're waiting for your confirmation number and color card, and then come back, start recording again, and give us that info. So what happens in the case of a multiple, where you have 2-3 fish on at the same time? Happens all the time, and our preference is that if the fish cooperate, we'd like you to get us a fish ID to leader touch and cut and color card from 1 fish at a time, right? But obviously we also understand the fish don't necessarily abide by our request. So if you have a couple of fish and it's all looking like the releases are going to happen in very close time, and the practicality of calling those fish in to get the color card and separate breaks is not super realistic, we want you to get those releases first. And so in that situation, what we say, here's how you have to handle it. So it's important for your camera guy to make sure multiple fish that it's very easy for us to distinguish who the different anglers are fighting the different fish. We need to be able to clearly identify the two different fish on video, the two different anglers. We recommend that your camera recorder kind of narrates the video, talks us through it. Okay, I got Jamie fighting the fish off to the left. I got John fighting the fish off to the right. Talk us through the video so we can kind of better understand what it is that you're seeing firsthand in the cockpit, right? And then those two releases, again, just make sure for each fish, it's very clear, the leader touched separately, the leader cut separately, and so long as we can see all that, then you can stop recording. Your captain will call in, he'll request the confirmation numbers for those 2 or 3 fish and the colors, and we'll more than likely give you the same color for your multiple fish if they're both called in at the same time. All right, guys, so that's your in-depth how-to on the process for properly documenting a sailfish release on video. So we've got an example video for you here to watch now, so take a peek. If any of your questions aren't answered, feel free to shoot us an email or give us a call on the office line.
Angler Mac. Angler Mac, possible fish number 5. I got the footage. I got the visual and the footage. There's a leader grab.
Matt, go backwards, okay. We have the leader and everything, right?
Yep, we got everything.
Oh, yeah. Now that's how you fucking do it, boy. Come on, call it in. I knew it was fucking Benito. All I had to do is put leader on the course for you, and that dude, look at this shit.
Hi, Angler Mac, Herman, boat 39, icebox, sailfish release. Mac, M-A-C. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Alright, bye. Hey, Mac, 201 red.
Huh?
201 red.
Ready? 201 red, Mac Herman, sailfish release, icebox.
Boat 39.
Boat number 39.
Chumming. So what is the policy on chumming? Of course, there is absolutely no live chumming in the tournament. Baits that you fish, once you are ready to discard that bait, if you have not obviously caught a fish on it, those baits can just be put right here in a 5-gallon bucket like this, carry them on board the boat until the end of the day. After line's out, you can discard your used baits. Chunk bait, cut bait, none of that is allowed. However, you can use frozen ground chum that would come in a box like bionic bait or something of that nature. All right, so let's talk about some situational stuff and questions because we get them a lot. So I want to include that in the video. Hopefully it covers maybe some questions that you guys have. If not, you know how to get a hold of us. So kites fishing in the air right now. Let's say I got a guy off the bow with a spinning rod or whatever, right? I got my 7 lines, okay? He gets tight on a sailfish off the bow, right? And we've still got 6 rods fishing behind us, okay? I don't have 2 kites in the air right now, but if I did just, use your imagination, let's play along together. It is perfectly fine for a member of your team to reel one of these kite baits out of the water, and another member of the team can grab another spinning rod if they saw a tail or a free swimming fish to pitch another bait on that and get tight. So long as one of those kite baits never touches the water and you're still fishing no more than 7 rods, that's perfectly fine. However, if that bait that you reel up out of the water happened to go back in while you're fighting 2 fish and now you've got 8 lines in, those hooked fish are considered rods that are fishing, okay? That line goes back in the water with the bait, those fish don't count, they're DQ'd. So that's really a personal call for you guys and your crew members as to what you're comfortable with and their ability as to whether you'd want to do something with that, but it is permissible. My recommendation, if the short baits didn't get eaten, pop out the short baits, get them out of the, get them in the boat quickly, and then fire a bait. All right, another situational aspect I wanted to share with you guys is a hooked fish. Let's say I hook a fish here and another member of the team grabs a rod and he's getting tight, and we both come tight on what we think are two different fish, but we figure out that it is actually one fish that's eaten two baits. At the point in time that it's clear to you that you know that you've got a fish that's eaten two baits, one of the two rods needs to be parted. You got to decide which one you want to let go, and one rod, one angler, one fish. He's right here, he's right here, he's right here. I'm kidding. We don't have a fish on. I wish we did, but we don't. So let's talk about a fish that's wrapped up. Remember, you've got to touch the leader, right? Somebody on your boat has to touch the leader to make the release official. Remember, those leaders can be 15 foot in length. So if you've got a fish that leader's wrapped all the way around him, you physically can't get your hands on it without doing more damage to the fish than you would want you to. You can do something as simple. I mean, this is an 8-foot gaff right here. Reach out and touch the fish, and that is a legal release. Grab a boat brush, grab anything that's under 15 feet in length if you had to, if the fish was wrapped up. Got to make sure you get that on video and we can see it. Obviously, we're going to take a close look to make sure we can really tell that it's wrapped up. But this would be a way to work around a tough situation where you've got a fish wrapped up. As you can see, we're sharing this with you because it's stuff we've encountered before. It's questions that have come up. So the whole goal is obviously to try and give you all the tools and information you guys need to be as clear as you can on tournament policy. Let's talk about a fish that's stretched out. So, maybe you got a double on, you got one fish going one direction, one fish going the opposite direction. One of the anglers is almost down to the knot on the spool, and you're trying to figure out what to do, which fish are you going to go over or go after. I've had plenty of guys ask us, can we throw a guy in the water with a life jacket? The answer is not no. It's hell no. You can't put anybody in the water in the tournament, okay? You can't attach a life jacket and throw the rod over. That's considered to be an aid in fighting that particular fish some other way than the angler themselves. Now, what you can do is if I'm stretched out and I'm about to lose this fish and you guys want to go after the other one, somebody can hand me a rod with a snap swivel on it. I can clip it off to the guide or right here, on the reel. I can throw this reel and rod in the water if I wanted to and continue fighting that fish on another rod myself as an angler. That is legal. We don't have any issue with that, but it needs to be done by the angler, and that's the only way that it could be done if you're stretched out that far and trying to figure out, again, how to work through a challenging situation like that. Video tips. So we've talked about some important stuff, backup cameras, backup batteries, making sure your lens cap isn't on, etc., etc. This is probably one of the most important pieces of advice I can give your camera guy. And that's at the end of the day, within a couple of minutes before lines out, you absolutely should make sure your camera guy is rolling, okay? And that video is properly recording the time and the date, because it happens every tournament where we have a bunch of bites at the end of the day, people are trying to call in. You could have that bite at 3:59 and be struggling to try and get to us. Maybe you don't get to us till 4:01. And again, our goal is not to disqualify your releases. Our goal is always to qualify them so long as you're doing it properly, right? So if you can show us at the end of the day that without question you hooked that fish before lines out and released that fish properly, we're going to be able to give you credit just by nature of the fact that your camera guy's rolling at the end. So that's very important. And as far as the camera recommendations are concerned, again, remember, it's SD card cameras only. You can use the hand cameras. They've got some really good solid ones out there. You can see this device on my head is for a GoPro attachment, which this is always going to give the angler who's fighting the fish a really great perspective. I would recommend having 1 or 2 of these if you can for your primary angler guys that they can wear, or sticking one on somebody's head when they're fighting a fish. And this is another camera that a lot of guys use, which is the underwater stick with the GoPro attachment. And literally, you know, you could be filming that release. This GoPro has a really, really wide field of view, which is great. You can't zoom it in and screw it up, which is nice. And then you can go right underwater. If you have a fish that's really not cooperating well, water's dark, it's overcast, it's hard to see, this underwater shot is going to give you everything you need. So, you know, most boats I see a primary hand camera, and then I see a mix of GoPros in the mix of what they're doing, and then some of them incorporate this, which again, we've watched thousands of hours of video, and a lot of really good stuff comes off of this particular camera. And the last thing I would say to that, which I just mentioned, on not messing something up with the zoom, if you're using a camera where you can zoom in and out, guys, do not zoom in. Stay zoomed out, stay wide. We can do the zoom in on our part in the computer to look for that fish better if we need to, but a lot of times when you zoom in, you reduce your field of view. It's harder to see that, find that fish. You think you've got it, you really don't have it. Stay wide, stay zoomed out is my recommendation. All right, guys, so that's a wrap for our first ever video review of the Quest for the Crest Sailfish Series rules. We hope you find it to be super informative and helpful, and I hope that it makes the captain's meeting a lot less boring for all of you. So enjoy. We hope everybody has a great season, a great series, and we'll see you at the next tournament.